some at levels that can be unhealthy. Greenwich High School recognizes the concern and is working on ways to address it at the school. The Greenwich High School PTA wanted to provide parents with information on how to recognize symptoms of stress in a student and ways to help them manage it. So we brought a panel of experts together to help us parents understand the underlying issues for the stress and how we can best help and support our children through these teen years. It's a video.
Oh, okay. So we will hear from our individual panelists. They'll speak on their area of expertise for several minutes, and then it will be followed by a question and answer period at the end. So I'm going to start by introducing all of our panelists, and if you don't mind, just raise your hand. So we have Dr. DeTesso. He graduated from Williams College with a BA in psychology and earned his master's in education and doctorate at Teachers College, Columbia University. He worked for 9 years as an elementary school teacher at Country Day School. In 2006, he opened a private practice in Stamford, Connecticut for 4 years, and then became the clinical director at the Southfield Center in Darien. He is currently associated with the Waverly Group and is a certified school psychologist at Greenwich High. Dr. DeTesso will discuss various teen stressors and suggest ways that parents can help their students cope. Next, we have Dr. Frank Bartolomeo. He's the Director of Behavioral Health Services at the Southfield Center for Development in Darien. He has over 25 years of mental health experience in myriad roles and settings as a psychotherapist, executive manager, scholar, and program consultant. In Connecticut, Dr. Bartolomeo assisted in the conceptualization, design, and implementation of a therapeutic day school, and later in the creation of a substance abuse treatment program for adolescent males. Dr. Bartolomeo will discuss stress and how it can lead to risky behavior, and will highlight the warning signs and how you can best support your child. Elise Shapiro holds a Master's of Science in Clinical Nutrition and Dietetics from New York University. Before launching her own practice, she was a dietitian at Joy Bauer Nutrition, and that's Joy Bauer of the Today Show, and served as clinical dietitian at the Hospital for Special Surgery. She is the co-author of the book, Should I Scoop Out My Bagel? She'll be discussing the importance of healthy eating and the food-mood connection. And our very own Kathy Steiner has a dual BS degree in elementary education and special ed, and an MS degree in wellness education. She has been in our Greenwich public school system since 1989 and has worked at Greenwich High as a wellness education teacher for the past 17 years and is currently the learning facilitator for the Health and Wellness Department. She continues to work with administrators, educators, parents, and students to revise our district K-12 health education curriculum, which she headed in the early 1990s. Kathy advises many clubs at Greenwich High, including the Greenwich High Outreach SAD Club, whose motto is, keep yourself safe, party sober, and the outreach has collaborated with the administration and students, as well as a wide group of community members, to present an ongoing event series entitled Stress, Success, and Teenage Setbacks. This is used to discuss relevant teen topics and how to encourage and support our teens to make healthy, strong, and safe decisions. So to begin our program, we'd like to welcome 2 young women who represent the students on the GHS Student Stress Committee that Dr. Winters has convened this year. Liz Murray and Maya Gerster will tell us about the work the committee is doing. So why don't you come up for a few minutes?
Hi, I'm Maya Gerster. I'm a junior at the high school, and it's my first year on the Stress Committee. The Stress Committee is a group of students and faculty that's been put together by Dr. Winters to examine the levels of stress at the high school, its causes, and possible ways to lessen it. Working with data from previous stress committees at the school, this year's group hopes to implement short-term and long-term solutions to help reduce student stress at the high school.
So my name is Liz. I'm a senior at the high school, and it's also my first year on the committee because the stress committee expanded a lot this year to include more students in the dialogue. So like I mentioned before, the stress committee has spent the past couple of years gathering information because unfortunately student stress is not usually a topic that has a lot of data attached to it. And so to discuss those findings a little bit, what the stress committee found when they reviewed the data is that students have a bunch of different stressors, and those stressors can affect kids differently based on their age. So underclassmen tend to undergo different types of stressors than upperclassmen. For example, freshmen and sophomores tend to exhibit more social stressors because they're dealing with the transition from middle to high school. Their social groups have sort of just been shaken up. They're not really sure who they are yet, what types of things they're going to be interested in at the high school. So that transition is often difficult, so those social stressors can be much higher. Whereas juniors and seniors are now just beginning the college process and they keep because we're ramping up and things like that. And so those types of stressors are at an all-time high because kids are trying to figure out what they're going to do after graduation day. Not everyone has a really clear picture of where they want to go, who they want to be, and not everyone has really great access to college information or college resources. So those types of stressors can be different for all kinds of students, but those typically affect upperclassmen much more. So in that sense, freshmen and sophomores exhibit much different types of stress from juniors and seniors. However, what we did find is that everyone does exhibit some types of stress, and that is balancing social life, extracurriculars, and your homework. I think anyone with kids can understand that it's really difficult to balance everything in your life, especially when you're in high school and you have a lot on your plate. So everyone sort of exhibits stress when they're trying to deal with balancing their whole life. So that's what the stress committee has sort of found so far, is that there are some stressors that are different, some that are the same. And the reason that we did all this research and pulled all this data and polled all our students so much is so that we could use this information to develop subcommittees that could help us actually attack the root of the problem and help our students more effectively.
Our subcommittees are comprised of about 5 or 6 students and teachers. We all got to choose which subcommittee we would be a part of, so everyone is really passionate about the issue that their subcommittee is tackling, and it's generated really meaningful discussions, and every subcommittee has been able to propose at least one short or long-term solution to different stressors at the high school. We have 7 different subcommittees. They are stress reduction techniques, which we call mindfulness, the college and post-high school planning process, homework, APs, major assessments like midterms and finals, the number of tests you can have in one day, and then social media, because we've really noticed that what happens outside of school on apps like Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook has really translated into an effect here at the high school, and it's definitely affecting students.
So we hope that gives you more of a picture of what the Student Stress Committee at the high school is doing. Maya and I are both very grateful to be part of it. We think it's a really, really great organization, especially because it integrates students, administration, and teachers so wonderfully and creates really important dialogues that don't tend to happen outside of the committee. So it's a really, really great organization. It shows that the school is really trying to help the students improve their wellness, improve their livelihood, and get ready for the next stage of their lives. So that's what the Stress Committee is all about.
Thank you, Maya Liz. It's really terrific. Okay, so now we'll hear from Dr. Jeff.
Is it okay if I stand up here instead of getting behind the podium? Are you okay with that? Okay. So I have an 18-year-old son who attends Greenwich High School, who's a senior here this year, and we just finished up with the college process. So I've been nothing but stressed for the past year. Luckily, he's gotten into college, and now I'm stressed that he can still stay in the college because I don't want him to go through the senior slump, which he's starting to go through already. So we have plenty of stress. I wanted to back up and just start with some statistics for you with stress. For those of you who get Time Magazine, this just came out a couple months ago, anxiety, depression in the American adolescent. Stress, anxiety, depression, it's everywhere you turn. Every time you look at a magazine or turn on the internet and go to the web, there's something about anxiety, depression, and stress. So here are some interesting statistics that I want to give you. Back in 2015, 3 million teens between the ages of 12 and 17 reported having at least one major depressive disorder. more than 2 million reported a significant impact. 6.3 million reported having an anxiety disorder. 6.3 million. An anxiety disorder. But the research is saying that less than 20% of kids with issues are even getting treatment. That is scary. That is scary. Why don't they get treatment? Because a lot of the kids don't come up and tell anyone. They don't tell their parents, they don't tell their teachers, they don't tell their friends. So this goes unnoticed. The American Psychological Association came out recently and said that now teens are much more stressed than adults. Adults used to hold the most stress, but teens have taken it over. So your teens have more stress than you do. So when you think you are stressed, you are not as stressed as your teens. It's unbelievable data that's out there now. Before I get into some of the brain development, some other pieces and more stressors, I want to talk about some myths with teens. I've been at the high school now for 17 years. I deal with teens every single day, and there's a lot of myths about teens that just aren't true. Any idea what some of the myths are that we always talk about with teens? How do we always describe teens?
Difficult phase.
Difficult phase. Raging hormones, right?
Drama.
What? All the drama. Yep.
Rebellious.
Rebellious. Yep. What else?
Moody.
Moody. That was kind of true. But some of these, like raging hormones, immaturity, but they can't get hurt. All myths. They don't believe this. We also say, God, they're so much worse than we were. Here's some interesting research. Back in 1991, which is when I graduated from college, right around there, teens were more likely to carry a weapon, smoke, try alcohol, binge drink, and have sex than teens today. So who was worse? What the hell was I missing back in 1991? Clearly missed something. I don't know. What are some truths about teens, though? What are some truths? Well, we know that they're novelty seeking, right? We know that they have their whole things about social engagement, how well they're connected socially. They have more emotional intensity, and I'll get to that in a second with the brain. They have creative explorations, and they have underdeveloped brains. And we'll get to the brain piece in a second. What are some of the stressors that you've heard? So what are some of the stressors that your teens are experiencing? What causes them?
Social media.
Testing, social media.
Homework.
Homework. Lack of sleep.
College process.
College process. Grades. Relationships. Teenagers. Drugs. Alcohol. All of these pressures are going on. Plus, how about biologically them changing? How about family environment and what they experience in their home? They are under constant barrage in terms of stressful situations. And we have to keep this in mind and remember that their brains are not in the same place that ours are. So let's talk about this brain. The brain has significant rewiring between the ages of about 12 and 25. But we know that it's almost fully developed, almost, by about the age of 6. But the limbic system, the part right in the middle, which is the emotional part of the brain, that develops first. The last part to develop, the prefrontal. Any idea what the prefrontal controls?
Emotion.
Impulse control, emotional regulation, planning, time management, problem solving, all these executive functioning pieces. Any idea when it's fully developed for male or men? Don't say never. How old?
24.
27. How about women? 21. 21. So women are definitely much more developed than we are. And there's all kinds of theories about why this is, but we know that the male prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until much later. And it's the most important part of the brain in terms of decision making. Well, that's just kind of important. Kind of. There's also this stuff called dopamine in the brain. And dopamine is all about pleasure. Whenever we see something that we like, dopamine gets released. When you do a bump of cocaine, dopamine gets released. When you open your phone and you look at something on your phone, dopamine gets released. If you get Facebook likes, dopamine gets released. So here's what we know. We know that teenagers develop significantly more dopamine receptors in their teenage years. But their baseline of dopamine is lower, which is why you get the, I'm so bored. I'm just bored. But then when they get something exciting, their reaction to the dopamine shoots up. They have a much more intensive response. So this myth of raging hormones, it's not about raging hormones, it's about this dopamine response in the brain. Important. But when you have a hit of dopamine, you begin to think things like, I don't know, whatever I think is right, you're not. I'm much more impulsive, I'm much more likely to have addictive type of behaviors. And these are highly vulnerable traits at this age. So, kids start taking many more risks at this age. The only thing more risky than taking risks for teenagers, though, is not taking risks. Teenagers must take risks. Kind of scary to think about. I'm not saying let them take risks, but they need to in terms of their own development. So this is an important part of the brain and the brain development at this age. Okay, so this prefrontal, which isn't fully developed, controls impulsivity. You ever heard of the marshmallow study? How many of you heard of the marshmallow study? All right, so some of you have. So here's the marshmallow study. They put little kids in front of a marshmallow, one marshmallow, and they said to the child, if you don't eat this marshmallow for 10 minutes, I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you a second marshmallow. And they just videotaped the kid. That was the only direction. And then they would just watch the kid. And you would see these kids, and they put their nose up on it, or they pick it up and smell it, or they take a little, and then some kids would just, take a bite, right? They did long-term studies, and this has been replicated in country after country after country. At 18 years of age, the kids who control their impulsivity had significantly more productive characteristics, such as better GPA, better SAT scores, better body mass index, better college acceptances, better first jobs. Remarkable research, all about controlling your impulsivity. So this brain development is a huge piece for our teens. But we don't often talk about it or think about it. But it's a critical aspect. When teens even do emotional thinking, they use the wrong part of the brain. Yergel and Todd did research where she put people into an MRI, kids and adults. She put them in an MRI, and she had them look at faces with emotions. The adults were 100% correct with the right emotion on the face. The kids, about 50%. The part of the brain that the adults were using, prefrontal cortex. Part of the brain that the children were using, adolescents were using, the limbic system. So kids are using their emotional part of the brain to even look at facial expressions and determine emotion, while parents are using their prefrontal cortex. Okay. When stress happens, the limbic system lights up. Your amygdala, which is a part of it, I call it amygdala hijack for all of you, and I teach it this way to the kids. You've ever seen your kids get an amygdala hijack, where they're just so stressed and can't calm down? When this happens, they have adrenaline and cortisol rushing through their body. And it makes sense because it's getting ready for fight, flight, or freeze. But when it's chronic, it's not healthy. So it's great if you're walking down a dark alley and a bad guy jumps out at you. You want all of this flow rushing through your body. But kids who are stressed have it rushing through their body every single day. So We don't want this bad guy jumping out at you in the dark alley every single day. When you have that chronically, you have all different kinds of effects, even from brain development to how DNA is read, to the amygdala becoming bigger, to shrinking of different parts of the brain just from chronic stress. So, what do we do about this? You know, what do we have to actually end up dealing with it? Well, I think my colleagues here are going to talk more about different things. But I wanted to talk about 4 to 5 basic things that you can do. And I hope hopefully I don't talk about the same things. But the first thing is focusing on the body. What do I mean by body? And I won't get into this, but sleep, eat, exercise. And we're going to talk a lot about the food piece. But just thinking about their bodies, their physical bodies and what it is. Number 2, how do you listen and talk to your team? When do you listen and talk to your team? Where do you listen and talk to your team? Do you try to do it when they have a phone in their hand? Do you try to do it when you have a phone in your hand? Do you do it in the car in a 2-minute ride and try to bring up a major topic with 2 minutes in the car? You're like, okay, get out of here. Good talk. Right, so these things become really important. Learning how to listen and validate becomes critical. Right, there's this old expression, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. And I think that's really important for parents. Parents need to learn how to, forgive me, but they need to learn how to shut up and just listen. And then when they do talk, they need to learn how to ask questions. And not questions that are based out of anger or rage, but questions out of what is going on and how do we help. Children will understand when the parent is trying to get at that, versus the parent's just mad at their child. Kids at Greenwich High School will come in my office and be extremely angry and come in and slam the door. And if I say to him, "What did you do?" What do you think the reaction is going to be?
Defense.
Yeah, nothing. That teacher, son of her. Right? So if I start validating, you seem really angry, what's going on, and you get talking, you might even initially start with the teacher, but as the conversation goes and he re-regulates, well, I did take my phone out again, and the teacher had told me 20 times not to take my phone out, and so she took my phone, and I guess I probably should have done that. But if I don't validate or listen, it doesn't get there. How many times as parents do we not validate and listen, and the fight just goes and goes and goes, and we don't get anywhere with it? We're the adults. We have to think correctly and talk to our children correctly. There's a technique called reflective listening, which is so simple. So simple. The kid will say to me, "God, my parents are such a pain in my butt." And I'll say, "It seems like your parents are really a pain in the butt." And the kid will go, "Yeah, you get it! You so get me!" I'm like, oh my God. Wish I had taped this, right? Reflective listening. But how many of you have wanted to tell somebody in your life an important thing, and you didn't want them to solve your problem? You just wanted them to listen to you and understand where you were. And the person tries to start solving your problem. And you're like, "Stop. I don't need you to solve my problem. I just need you to understand how I'm feeling." And teens need this even more. They don't need you to solve their problems. They just want you to understand. By the way, you can't even get to the problem solving until they think you've understood. So this becomes a big piece. Being a role model. I'll finish it soon, sorry. Being a role model, incredibly important. If you don't role model how to handle stress, how are they going to handle it? If you go to your bottle of wine and pour yourself a bottle of wine and say, "I am so stressed," what are they learning from you? I guess a glass of wine will work, right? If you get stressed and get angry and yell, how can you get mad at them for getting stressed and angry and yelling back? You just taught them how to handle stress. all they're doing is doing what you're doing. So becoming a role model is exceptionally important. How many of you talk out loud to your children when you're stressed and say, you know, I'm stressed, so this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go for a walk. I think I'm going to go listen to some music. I think I'm going to go do some breathing. I think I'm going to go, probably not many. But that role modeling is no different than when you taught your child to cross the street. When you taught them to cross the street, you didn't go, hey, good luck. Have at it. Oh, don't forget to look both ways. Right? You held their hand. You got down with them. You modeled. You did your head movement with them. And then you walked. You verbally modeled. You visually modeled. Same exact thing. When you get to a point when they've calmed down, brainstorming coping strategies, and there's a million. I mean, there's another. We could do this whole thing, this whole tonight could be just on coping strategies that we could give you. But when they thought that you've heard them, you can actually begin to have a conversation about what would work in terms of coping strategy. Brainstorm with them. They might say, Mom and Dad, you don't get it. Okay, well, what do you think will work? And the last thing I would say to you is do not wait to get help. Too many people wait. You heard that statistic. If you think there's an issue, get help. There are so many wonderful private clinicians in Greenwich. Greenwich High School's got a psychologist in each house, a social worker in each house, 3 guidance counselors in each house. We've got 6 psychologists, 6 social workers, and 16 guidance counselors. There's more mental health in this building than any other public school in the area. And they've done that on purpose because they have listened to us. And so don't wait to get help. Such a long
Thank you, Dr. DeTesso. So now we'll hear Dr. Frankl.
So how many of you are feeling really stressed after Jeff gave some of those really dismal statistics, right?
Sorry.
Just a question, a show of hands. How many of you think that stress is inherently bad for you? Come on. Right? All right. Hold that, because our belief about stress will affect how stress affects us. I'm going to get to that. Stress is neither inherently bad or good for you. In fact, moderate levels of stress can actually be quite useful. In fact, we know that moderate levels of stress can enhance learning and performance. So how we relate to stress, the beliefs we have about stress, are very important, because if you have a belief that stress is bad for you, and you begin to experience stress, what dialogue starts happening in your mind? Oh my God, I'm feeling stressed. I shouldn't feel stressed. It's going to affect my cholesterol. And the mind starts going. Okay? So when we talk about stress, there are 2 parts of stress. There's the external event or events, and then is our response or reaction to it. So the relationship to stress is a very important element of this. That's why some people will have very different reactions to stressful events. Some might find something they might dismiss it and say, why are you finding that so stressful? Okay? So it's also how we relate to stress. And that's a lot of what I want to talk about today. So there's the event, and then the relationship or response to stress. So there's a cognitive style that some of us have, that when we experience stress, we do something we call catastrophizing. Anyone familiar with this idea? So it might be something like something happens and you start thinking of every worst case scenario. What if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? Anyone familiar with that? All right. Maybe not. All right. That what ifing is in some ways designed to protect and prepare for this onslaught. The problem is much of that what if is imagined. So what's the difference between fear and anxiety? Fear, as Jeff pointed out, would be a response if someone jumped out at us. If a tiger ran into this room right now, we would all have a fear response. And without having to think, our bodies would engage in fight, flight, or freeze. If a real tiger ran into the room. Anxiety is about the imagined tiger, the imagined situation. So when we start looking at kind of risky situations, our minds, and particularly adolescents, have this ability to really scare themselves in these worst case scenarios. So there is this cognitive style, and one reason we use cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety is we start looking at these underlying beliefs or assumptions, the thoughts that we have about the event or the stress that can either exacerbate them or cause you to respond in a more calm manner. Now, there's also a cognitive style that under-responds. So we might call that kind of we might call it denial, right? So at either end of those extremes, there's not good adaptation, and stress is all about adaptation. So there's someone who over-responds, and their bodies are secreting this adrenaline and all sorts of things, and then there's the under-responder. It's no big deal. Anyone familiar with this? Guess where adolescents tend to reside? One or the other, right? The middle ground is not where adolescents tend to reside because of the reasons Jeff talked about. They tend to react in very extreme ways or underreact. And that's when in some ways some of the risks can emerge. So what are some of the risks that we're talking about? So stress can play a role. Again, we're not talking about moderate levels of stress. It can play a role in the contribution to development of anxiety, particularly if you have a temperamental or family history of anxiety. So we have genetics, environment, mix. In some cases, it can lead to depression. So depressed brains under the microscope look a lot like stress brains. Okay, so these are kind of mental health disorders that stress can contribute to the development of. And that's cause I'm talking about contributing to. Because we have biology and then we have our coping skills. One of the most common strategies that adolescents use in dealing with stress is something we call avoidance. People familiar with this? So if we can't get rid of a stressful thought because it's occurring in the space between our ears and behind our eyes, it's an event occurring in our brain, if we can't really get rid of that, what can we do? We can avoid the very thing that's causing us anxiety. And that behavior gets reinforced. So let's look at social anxiety, for example. Someone might have some fears that if they speak up, they imagine they could be humiliated. How do you deal with that stressful thought and feeling? You stop speaking up. The feeling goes away. That behavior becomes reinforced. Now when they think about speaking up, guess what's happened? Now it has monumental meaning for them, and if I speak up, what's going to happen? All its attention will be drawn to them because now they're known as the kid who doesn't speak up. So a lot of what start off as solutions become problems. What can amplify, and the reason why avoidance is so widespread, is a really good short-term solution with long-term consequences. So I compare it, I see the kids. So that's the ostrich approach. You're feeling stressed by schoolwork, so you plop your head into the ground and you start distracting yourself. And they have myriad ways of distracting themselves. And for that period of time, they're free from the anxiety or the stress related to schoolwork. But guess what happens when their head comes out of the sand? Now it's become worse. Now it's magnified. It's increased. Guess what they do? Head goes back into the sand. They pull it back out. Oh my God! Head goes back in the sand, and then they get it to Jeff's office. And I think some of the other speakers will talk about this. There are healthy forms of distraction, and then there are unhealthy forms of distraction. So video games in and of themselves are not unhealthy, but if you use them to such an extent that you're blocking out any kind of stress and you're zoning out for a period of time, and you can't adapt to reality, then it becomes unhealthy. This is a role that sometimes substances might play. Why is alcohol widely used? Alcohol is a depressant. Its effect on the central nervous system is it depresses things. That's why when we're feeling really stressed, we feel like I want to have a glass of wine. So one potential risk factor for kids is that they will find a solution that helps them avoid dealing with stress. And those can be distractions and use of substances that amplify the avoidance strategy. So a lot of kids that I work with use a lot of avoidance. They also tend to use a lot of pot. And what I say is pot tends to amplify that avoidance strategy. The avoidance tends to be there already, but the pot tends to amplify it. So these are some of the risk factors. Anxiety, depression, substance use. Also what you often have with anxiety are somatic complaints, stomach aches, headaches, because anxiety is experienced in the body. So the mind is reacting as if there's a literal danger, although it's an imagined one. And that's what our brains do. The human brain can language, and we can scare ourselves so that that amygdala is responding as if there's a real danger when it's imagined. And that's how we exacerbate our stress. So, what can parents do? One, we can help our kids prepare and accept that stress is part of the human condition. If we hold the belief that life should or ought to be comfortable, how do we react when it isn't? This shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening to me? I shouldn't be feeling this way. What's wrong with me? If we start teaching children that life, part of the human condition, involves dealing with stress and discomfort, that can lead to something called acceptance. If I can accept that I'm feeling discomfort, and that's part of the human condition, I don't have to do this thing to myself where I criticize myself, I think there's something terribly wrong, I put on the struggle switch, that kind of thing. So that's part of what's teaching resilience. Now, where we're defined as parents is because we're hardwired from evolutionary times to want to protect our children. We are hardwired to do it. So when we see our child struggling, what do we tend to do? What does our body want to do? Rush in and help. We can't help it. We're hardwired to do that. But what if, in that desire to help, we're actually undermining the development of a robust, I'll call it a psychological immune system? We have other examples where we've done this. Anyone familiar with the hygiene hypothesis? Well, the Centers for Disease Control has speculated that one of the reasons for the increase in childhood allergies is because of our preoccupation with protecting our children from all of these bad germs. Good intention, unintended consequence, undermined immune system. The corollary on the psychological level is the desire to protect our children from stressors undermines their coping system. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing epidemic levels of anxiety among children and college students. Because we've done something kind of very interesting to our children. On one hand, I consider this adultification with the amount of academic work they have. So I have kids coming into my office, kids who you think would have this vibrancy, this life to them, and they're talking to me like they're old people. This is my life. I go to school every day. I go to rowing afterwards. I go home and do 3 hours of homework. I go to sleep. I get up and do it again. So I hear this in my office. So on one hand, the academic demands that we've placed on our children, particularly in environments like Fairfield County and other very wealthy areas, we've increased those. And on the other, we've protected them from really dealing with certain kinds of stressors. See this kind of paradox? Because in one way, I think sometimes we feel guilty about all the demands we placed on them academically, so we want to relieve them of any stress. So what do we do when our child comes in and says, I have all this stress? We want to fix it. And where do we tend to look? What can be changed on the outside? Right? But I said stress involves an external event and an internal event. But our tendency is to say, what can I change on the outside? I have this teacher who's causing me a lot of stress. Oh, we got to get you a new teacher. And when we do that over and over again, what we're teaching kids is that we can conform the world to respond to us in a way that we want. Increasingly, the world won't do that for them. So what are they then forced to do? So Viktor Frankl, who knew something about stress, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He survived a concentration camp. He said that when we're no longer able to change a situation, we're forced to change ourselves. We call that internal adaptation. It's changing how we're relating to the stress. Right? When we set a limit for our young children and they start having a tantrum, in part what we do when we want to hold that limit is we want to teach them how to deal with an unchangeable reality. When their distress causes us to say, oh, I didn't really mean it. You can have that cookie. The behavior that's being reinforced is what? If I complain, I'll treat my parent like a slot machine, right? So if I keep going up to her and nagging, that's like putting coins in the slot machine. And let's say you had a history of sometimes responding and sometimes not. Guess what they're waiting for? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That's the moment they're waiting for. And if they've learned, if I can keep just, eventually that slot machine's coming down. Right? So teaching our children that stress is an inherent part of life. And we have some influence of how we respond to that. Okay, Jeff already mentioned this, I won't get into this. We have to look at how have we modeled responding to stress. I know lots of adults who fly off the handle. I've done it on occasion. Jeff pointed out if the idea is, oh, I've had a really stressful day, I'm reaching for the liquor cabinet. So what you're teaching there is, okay, I learned to go to external substances to change how I feel. Number 3. We can try to help our children by emphasizing doing their best versus being the best. We can emphasize personal excellence versus being better than someone else. Right? So when we start operating from this place of, I want to feel better than, and that becomes a source of our self-esteem, guess what happens? That's a very vulnerable self-esteem. Because when I do better than someone, I feel wonderful. When someone does better than me, how do I feel? Pretty awful, right? So teaching kids to focus kind of on their own game. 10 years or so ago, I started getting into yoga and thought it would be really, really useful for my stress. And as I'm doing the yoga, I'm looking over at the other mats, going, wow, I want to do that, I want to do that. And I'm starting to feel kind of discouraged. And the yoga instructor came up to me, and I thought it was a very profound thing. She said, focus on your own mat. And that's really what it was about. But as I was doing all of this comparison, at that time I was feeling mostly less than. Right? So we can talk about kids setting personal benchmarks for excellence versus competing. See the difference? We can relieve kids of this idea of perfectionism. So if you have this drive for perfection, guess how you're going to relate to stress? And if you live in this black and white world where either I'm the best thing since sliced bread or I'm lower than well done, that's a pretty hard existence. And for a lot of kids who live in perfection, that's what it is. One or the other. We can start teaching kids the idea of self-compassion. I am always stunned by the amount of self-criticism I hear from kids. Maybe Jeff can attest to this. It's unbelievable. The amount of self-criticism that goes on in kids' heads. So in response to the test, I'm a loser, I'm an idiot, I'm a failure. When you start having those thoughts, guess what starts happening? What happens with your body? So teaching kids self-compassion versus self-criticism. And the other piece is avoid having your children develop an achievement-based identity. What that means is the idea that my value is based on how I do. Emphasize other kinds of values like being a good person, kindness. Now sometimes parents say the right things. So I work with one parent who, she tells her son all the right things, like it's really about your effort. But guess how she reacts when he doesn't do as well as she expected? Boom! In those moments, she's saying something different. So a lot of kids talk about, I feel like I'm only valuable because I'm doing well academically, sports-wise. So Sanaya Luthar, some of you may be familiar with her, she's a researcher. She's done a lot of work on the impact of affluence. So she's an affluence researcher. She was one of the people who discovered in her research, she had actually looked to try to do some research here, but I understand it couldn't happen in Greenwich, so she went to Westport. But she's one of the people who talked about that affluence is now a risk factor for kids. Advantage is disadvantage. And that affluence creates higher levels of anxiety, depression, substance abuse. She just came up with a recent study of middle schoolers. She went to these middle schoolers, she just surveyed them and said, what values do your parents really emphasize? So some of the kids talked about, my parents emphasize achievement, being the best. Others said, my parents emphasize kindness, contribution, respect for others. In her study, what she found is that the kids who believed that their parents overemphasized academic achievement were doing less well academically than the kids who said, my parents value kindness and respect of others. So the end result of that study, she says, to foster well-being and academic success, parents should emphasize kindness and respect for others at least as much, if not more, than exceptional academic and extracurricular achievement. And that was specifically geared towards middle school students. So, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Frank. And now we're going to go to Shapiro.
Anyway, thank you. I'm super excited to be here tonight. I'm going to talk about nutrition. I'm a registered dietitian, God bless you. And I know dealing with teenagers can be really difficult. I see them in my office all the time. I have 2 kids of my own, not teens yet, almost. But I know teenagers are overwhelmed with work and sports and social activities and pressures, and nutrition can be one of the key components to helping managing it. If kids are not properly fueled, they're just not going to feel good, especially the ones who are athletic, but even the ones who aren't athletic. If you're not fueling your body properly, you're just not going to feel your best, and we all know that personally. And there's a bunch of challenges that get in the way of kids, eating the best they can. One is these kids are busy, right? They even say to me, I don't have time to eat. I don't even have time for lunch. I definitely don't have time for breakfast. They're run on the go. They're overscheduled with, activities and sports. Late night eating. The kids are up late at night. They're studying, and I know they're not choosing like hummus and carrots, right? So that plays into it too. They have freedom. They're out on their own. I'm sure sometimes after school or on the weekends to meet friends. They're going to Starbucks and they're getting sugary drinks and cookies and all these fun things, and emotional eating and stress eating, that's a real thing. I'm sure a lot of us in this room have experienced it too. They eat when they're stressed, they're procrastinating from doing their work, if they're anxious or bored or lonely, if they're feeling, upset from social things at school. So, but it really throws them off. I mean, if we're not fueling our bodies properly, we're just not gonna feel right. And also, like they both said, like modeling behaviors. I'm sure a bunch of us have sat there on the couch with some ice cream or M&Ms, and then the kids learn to respond that way too. I mean, So, you know, it really is important to model, you know, good behaviors as best you can. And, you know, with these teens who are busy, I hear a lot of them are go, go, go during the day. They're barely eating lunch. They come home at 3 o'clock and then they eat nonstop until dinner and through dinner. You're shaking your head, right? They are starving. And, you know, grazing throughout the day, starting at 3 o'clock whenever they get home and on through the night, can lead to overeating, and they're not eating the right things. Again, I'm sure we've all been overly hungry and we come home and we're starving and we're just stuffing our faces with, you know, typically we tend to go for carbohydrates because those are starchy and they have a good mouthfeel and they're satisfying, but those are not the right things we need to be fueling our body with when we're hungry in the middle of the day, and I'll talk about that. Encourage them to think about it, plan ahead. Think about, you know, when I see teens in my office, I say, you know, think about your schedule for tomorrow. What, you know, when can you have a little snack? What time are you having lunch? Talk to your parents. I encourage parents to sit down with their teenagers over the weekend whenever hopefully a quiet time is, maybe a Sunday night. Talk about your meals for the week. I mean, how many, you know, parents, their kids complain they don't like what's being served for dinner, there's no food in the house. I mean, that comes up in my office all the time. My parents don't have the right food in the house. Sit down with them, talk about it. Bring them grocery shopping or make out like a fake, you know, we actually just started making out a meal plan for the house because we were just repeating the same meals and my kids were getting bored. So we were like, okay, girl, I have 2 girls. What do you want to eat? Let's talk about what we're going to eat Monday night. And it took 20 minutes, and everybody's just much happier now because everybody's getting what they want. And I'm not a short order. And, you know, one of the most important things, though, I'm sure you guys have heard it, I'm sure you talk to your kids about it, is the importance of breakfast, right? I know these kids are up late and then they're sleeping late. They sleep until the last, you know, 5 minutes, or what I'm hearing in my office is a lot of the teenage girls are taking a lot of time in the morning to get ready and do their hair and put on makeup, and so they're not making time for breakfast either. And it really, really is important. I was speaking to a friend whose child goes here, and they were like, but the kids love breakfast here, but I'm hearing it's bagels and muffins, and I'm assuming it's rolls. It's not healthy, right? It's not Greek yogurt. It's not. So if you can, either encourage your kid to get up 5 minutes earlier, or send them out the door with a healthy breakfast. I mean, scramble some eggs, throw it on 2 pieces of whole wheat toast, a whole wheat English muffin, in a whole wheat wrap. Easy. I don't care if they're eating it out the door. I just want them to eat something. Obviously, sitting down is much better. English muffin or toast with peanut butter or almond butter or sun nut butter. If somebody has food allergies, they can sit down, maybe some oatmeal with some fruit, a hard-boiled egg, or, I mean, I've sent kids out the door with the oatmeal in like a red Solo cup, and again, as long as they're getting something in. The Greek yogurt is great with some whole grain cereal, puffins, Cheerios, some fruit. At the end, you know, a lot of kids these days, especially, they're all on Instagram and they're all looking at all these food handles. Avocado toast, 2 pieces of whole grain bread with half of an avocado spread on it. Have them take pretty pictures of it, but then have them eat it because, you know, that will fuel them properly. If they want to have an egg with it, that's even better. You know, but kids who don't have breakfast have harder times focusing. They can become moody and cranky. You know, kids who skip breakfast are more likely to choose junk food later in the day. It really does totally mess up your metabolism and totally messes up your hunger cues. And again, like, I don't want them to grab a donut or a bagel on their way into school. It's better to send them with something. Or if they can get eggs with whole wheat toast here, that's even better. But try and send them out the door with something if they don't have those 5 minutes to sit down in the morning. And food and mood, I mean, stress happens. We can't control stress, but having a well-balanced diet does help to manage it. You know, a lot of things, again, with the internet, with parents going on diets, it's important that these kids are not going on fad diets. They're not cutting out gluten just to cut it out, and they're not going on juice cleanses. I see this in my office. Unbalanced calorie intake really can result in reduced energy, mood swings. You know, you want to make sure they're avoiding like large, high-fat, you know, really fried, heavy foods. Where do they all eat Orbos with the cones and all that stuff, right? Obviously encourage balanced meals, a mix of protein, complex carbs like the whole grains, and good healthy fats cooked with olive oil. And not enough people talk about the importance of eating iron-rich foods, but it's really important because it transports, all the nutrients throughout your body, especially to your brain. A lot of kids I'm seeing are becoming vegan and vegetarian just because, but you can get enough iron from beans, nuts, seeds, spinach, fortified cereals, barley, and then of course if they're not a vegetarian, meat, chicken, turkey, eggs, but that's actually a huge component. Making sure they're getting in omega-3s, right? Fatty fish like salmon, if they don't eat fish, throwing some flax seeds in their yogurt or their cereal, or if you're making smoothies, or walnuts if they like walnuts. Encouraging them to limit stimulants like coffee, energy drinks, which I'll talk about, and soda. And if they don't have an outlet like exercise, if they're not on a sport team, encouraging some kind of a hobby or other physical activity or some other kind of outlet. I don't know if anyone else is going to talk, if you're going to talk about meditation at all, but are you? Okay, great. And to, limit food with additives and preservatives as much as you can, because it really does, there's studies that it does affect mood. And emotional eating, right? I'm sure we've all done this too, or like they said, we've turned to wine, and food serves many other functions besides just satisfying hunger. It's what we've all been taught, It can be used to celebrate, relax, cope with stress, depression, loneliness, boredom, and procrastination. Occasionally we all do that, and that's okay, but failure to manage these non-hunger cues often can lead to significant weight gain, emotional stress, and poor health. So, but what to do? It's kind of interesting. I went home tonight after work before I came to eat dinner, and one of my daughters, she has a tendency to emotionally eat, and she had eaten her dinner, and my mom was over to watch the kids tonight, and she wanted some more of my mom's dinner. I'm like, why don't you just wait 10 minutes and see how you feel? Like, why don't you just wait, go play with your sister, why don't you go do something else? Sometimes it's just that 10-minute distraction to get them out of the situation and thinking about something else. So play with your sister, go for a walk, call a friend, do some homework, clean up, something, but sometimes it's just distracting them. And then sometimes they'll forget about it. If they really are hungry, they will come back, but try and have that conversation with them. Are you really hungry? Are you bored? Is this what's going to satisfy you right now? If not, what else can you do instead, right? If they're seeking attention or something else, what else could you do? But a lot of us do try and soothe ourselves with food. So it's important to gently have those conversations. Sleep, obviously we all know the importance of sleep. That average teenager needs at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. I know it's hard, they're up late, but also they're on their phones or they're watching TV. And so I feel like those are the things still as a parent you can attempt to control. So they say, turning off the computer or the TV or the phone at least 30 minutes before bedtime really does help. The lights from the phone is really distracting and activates your brain. Stick to quiet or calm activities at night so they can fall asleep more easily. So that's a huge component. Actually, when we're sleep deprived, it holds weight on us and we're more likely to make poor choices during the day. Again, we're going to reach for those carby, satisfying snacks. Energy drinks. Anybody in here's child asking for energy drinks or buying it or not yet? Okay, so it comes up the Red Bull.
The coaches recommended.
Red Bull and.
Not Red Bull.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry.
Gatorade. I'm athletics is a whole separate topic. But somebody else also was my son was I want Red Bull if you're not gonna let me drink coffee. But Red Bull, Monster, and other energy drinks, and even vitamin waters should be avoided. A lot of them contain added sugars or artificial sweeteners, which can affect our mood. The energy drinks contain a blend of guarana, taurine, B vitamins, and then mixed with caffeine can be really dangerous. Side effects include insomnia, nausea, upset stomach, dehydration, elevated heart rate, and blood pressure. So if this is coming up, it's really important to encourage them not to and actually explain the dangers of it. And then kind of with that is water. A lot of the kids I see just aren't drinking enough water during the day. I don't know if it's forbidden or what, or they're just too busy, but I tell everybody carry a big water bottle with them all day long and fill it up as they can. You know, we know it's good for their skin, especially if they're experiencing acne. It hydrates your muscles. It displaces other drinks like soda and juices. It helps to rehydrate us, especially if they are having coffee or something. It's really important that they are rehydrating with water. It fills you up so you have less room for unhealthy foods. And not drinking enough water, actually dehydration can lead to altered moods, energy levels, and ability to think clearly. So definitely send your kids with a water bottle, encourage them to drink it throughout the day. And then I get asked all the time, like, what are great snacks? And again, 3 o'clock, they come home, they're starving. If it's possible, it's great for you to have the healthy snacks out already so they're not rummaging for pretzels and goldfish or whatever else. Have out fresh fruit, veggies and hummus, edamame, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, again, depending on food allergies, celery with peanut butter, or even whole wheat crackers with peanut butter, string cheese, nuts, sunflower seeds, even like a turkey sandwich, you know, or mini turkey sandwich or a mini whole wheat pita. But if it's out when they walk in the door, they're more likely to grab it versus if they have to start preparing themselves something or rummaging through cabinets. So to wrap up, so you want to make sure they're not skipping breakfast or other meals. You want to encourage them to eat every 3 to 5 hours throughout the day. It keeps their energy up, it keeps their brain, you know, kind of going. It keeps their blood sugar stable. Have the balanced meals, a mix of protein, carbohydrates, and the healthy fats. Make sure they're staying hydrated. Have them plan ahead if they have a busy day. Put it on them a little bit to think about it a little bit. Have their plate be colorful, lots of vegetables, and then fuel them with high quality food. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Louise. And now we'll
Hi, everyone. I just have to say I'm honored to be up here with this panel. Such professionals, and sitting here listening to all three of you. It reinforces what I know as a wellness education teacher, and I'm so very proud that your children are learning this information in wellness class about stress, about how we perceive stress. Is it a distress? Do we see it as a negative? Is the glass half empty? Or do we see it as a positive? Eustress, is the glass half full? Is it a motivating factor in my life? Am I going to learn from this mistake? And do I take risks? And those risks are so important. And so positive risks, you know, it doesn't have to be going out and doing something bad with a peer group. It can be trying out for a sport that I'm not quite sure if I'm going to make, or joining this club, or organizing this community service project. I mean, those are positive risks that are all part of the developmental process of that teenage brain, which your child, if they're a junior this year, we will get into the development of the teenage brain, and that prefrontal cortex being the last part. That's why sober second thought is the phrase that I'm going to bring up with my juniors. Sober second thought. When things start to get too crazy, too hectic, take a step back, take a deep breath. Is this a good idea? Because we know that we can be very impulsive. You know, doing the marshmallow test. I mean, kids that want to eat that marshmallow, I give out Hershey Kisses when we talk about stress and stressors in our life, and what are those top 3 stressors. And I have to say, my students, juniors, come out and say it is school, it is SATs and ACTs in the college process, and my grades, parent expectation, teacher expectation. So we know that stressors are external, as we heard, but they're also internal. We place a lot of stress upon ourselves in competition with everybody else. And if we're not up to our standards or our parents' standards, then we start to get a little nervous, and that negative self-talk comes in. So I hope that as we're sitting here, as parents, I am a parent. I have a 22-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son who did go K through 12 through Greenwich Public Schools, and I'm proud to be a parent here, and I'm proud to be a teacher. I think we have an amazing Greenwich Public School system. I think our high school is fabulous, and we have wonderful teenagers. So there's our positive energy. right? There's our positive way to perceive things in order to deal with our stress as they come along. Because our kids, our children are stressed. We talk a lot about it in class, and but they're understanding that there's a mind-body connection, the psychosomatic, as Frank brought up, you know, that mind, we think about it, and then we start to get the stomach aches and the headaches and the chest depression and the back aches, and I can't sleep, and the I can't eat, or the overeating. And so food is important, hydration is important, sleep is important, exercise is important. It's a healthy lifestyle, you know, and meditation is important. I did just very quickly, I put this handout out there. A lot of these, obviously, there's some out here that are articles. I did add the article in here on depression, especially depression in teenagers, anxiety, stress as it relates to social media. So I think we can all understand that as much as we, as women, come out and females and say, this is what we're good at, and be acknowledged for what we're good at and our talents, our skills. A lot of times with social media, we're still looked upon as far as our appearance is concerned. How we look as opposed to what we can accomplish. So I think we can understand the connection with this. And this is the teen girls with depression, especially as it relates to social media. I also put in some YouTube clips. I am a YouTube junkie. I use a lot of YouTube clips in my wellness classes. The science of depression is here, the brain. It talks about the brain with depression, with stress. I love Kelly McGonigal's TED Talk is in here, How to Make Stress Your Friend. She talks about looking at stress as a positive, and when we do that as opposed to a negative, our body starts to secrete oxytocin. Not only do we have the adrenaline and the cortisol and the fight, flight, or freeze, because that's just how we're going to survive, to find that off switch, looking at stress as a positive will decrease our cortisol, decrease our adrenaline, but also increase our oxytocin. Our oxytocin is that feel-good bonding hormone that is released. And we get that when we are surrounded by those that we love. So when we are supported by family, by our wonderful mental health physician, our mental health professionals at Greenwich High School, our friends, we start to feel that we can handle things, and our body starts to relax, and our brain starts to relax, and coming to the present in order to deal with the situation is a lot better. I know that, I'm sure you know, research studies out there that looked at longevity. I can't cite who the source is, but as far as different factors that improve longevity or quality of life and quantity of years, they looked at nutrition, and they looked at hydration and exercise and not smoking and drinking and substances, and what they really found that made the biggest difference was the support system that we have. When we are around people that we love and we have a strong foundation of a support system, and we're not alone, and we go out and we ask for help and we talk, that's what really makes the difference with our longevity. So it's important to ask for help. You know, we ask for help when we have heart problems, and we ask for help, diabetes and cancer. Well, I hope that we can ask for help when we're anxious and stressed and depression. We need to talk about depression, which is a very treatable brain disease, just like we do our other physical ailments. So there is help and there is hope. And those just concepts are really just so important. There is the scientific power of meditation that I added in here, as well as a 14-day meditation, which is kind of fun. And I gave these to my juniors as well. It's in their YouTube folder. A couple of things, and then we're going to do a meditation because I know it's been a long night. Our social and emotional learning that we have here at Greenwich Public Schools, kindergarten through 12, we live by these 5 pillars. And if you have younger children, you know them. And now that you have older children, well, we've switched over from cards, which are cards, if you remember, were character, achievement, respect, determination, and service. Well, last year we flipped over to the 5 pillars of social and emotional learning just to be consistent, and I think it was a good switch. So our 5 pillars are be here, right? Just be here, be present, be safe, be honest, care for self and others, and let go and move on. I think let go and move on is the hardest thing. And there's research study out there that tells us that those stressors in our life that we don't have control over are more stressful than those that we do have control over. And I asked my juniors if they agree with it or disagree with it. And they'll tell me. And so then we talk. Why do you agree with it? Why do you disagree with it? Those that disagree with it say to me, Mrs. Steiner, if I have control over something, that's going to stress me out more because I know that now I'm responsible for it. If I don't have control over it, I just let it go. And I say to them, oh my gosh, you are my hero. Right? If you can let go, just let it, we don't even let it go. It's the hardest thing to do. So with those 5 SEL, social and emotional learning pillars, they tie in with the 5 principles of Reiki. And if you love Reiki and kind of holistic ways to come back to balance and homeostasis, the 5 principles of Reiki are, just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I will be grateful. Just for today, I will do my work honestly. And just for today, I will be kind to every living thing. So there truly is a parallel there. So I just want to concur that with our teenagers, it's all about them, right? It's all about them. It has to be. It is. So just to say, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And just listen. My husband says that I talk too much. He's like, getting to shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Just listen and let them talk. And it's amazing what we'll hear if we really do just allow ourselves to stop. Don't fix it. Just be there as love and as support. I always say, you know, our children don't care how much we know, but they really care how much we love them, right? And I think I said that wrong. It's our children don't, I'll figure it out. Let's meditate. It'll come to me. Our children don't care how much we don't know. Oh, our children don't know how, I don't know. Let's meditate. All right. So here we go. We're going to meditate to just a couple of minutes. That's all we're going to do. It's not going to be this big, long meditation. So please sit tall in your seat. If you can put your feet on the floor, hands in your lap, shoulders are relaxed, so just roll your shoulders back and down. Your jaw's relaxed. Your head is relaxed. And you can close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, you can have a soft gaze. So look about a foot in front of you. Just a soft gaze. So we're just for a few minutes going to focus in on our breath. So I ask you please to take a deep inhale through your nose. Let your belly rise up on your inhale. As you exhale out your nose, let the belly fall. Do that again. Just take a deep inhale through your nose, let the belly rise up on your inhale. As you exhale out your nose, let the belly fall. So I ask that you please focus in on your breath. Your inhale mind starts to wander, there's no worry, there's no judgment. Just bring it back to the breath. Our breath is our life force. It fuels our body, it fuels our mind. Feel the muscles relax. My hope for you is that you feel calm, you're relaxed, you feel peace. Please know that at any time throughout your day, you can always come back to this place of peace and calm in your breath. When you're ready, please open your eyes. Please take an inhale, raise your arms up, lifting, really reaching, stretching. Exhaling. That is an example of a meditation that I do with my students. And I have to tell you, they come in and say, Mrs. Stein, can we meditate? What's going on with me? And they love it. Sometimes it's really hard for them. The first time they looked at me like I was crazy, and I love it. I love being a little like, what are we going to do today? But they really do love it. Just to pull yourself away from all the drama, all the craziness, and just be for those few minutes. And the phrase is, our children don't care how much we know, but they know how much we care. See how our meditation clears our mind? Thank you for waiting.
So thank you, Kathy. I'm hoping all 4 of my girls have had your wellness class, so I can ask them to do that when they're feeling stressed. Anyway, thank you so much to the panel. Your wisdom is incredibly invaluable, and I hope I've learned something tonight. I hope all of you have too. And we are going to take a few minutes to just, if anybody has any questions. I know the night has gone long, but we will take a few questions.
I've heard somebody say that signs of depression in adolescents are different than adults. Can someone speak to that, or is that true?
Yes, I think what they mean by that is when we tend to think of adult depression, we tend to think of depressed mood generalized across different settings and situations. With adolescents, they can appear depressed in one situation, be with a group of friends in another, and you don't see that kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons we say it looks differently, because it may not be across the board generalized to all different environments.
And you may see the same thing with irritability. You may not see it with their peers, but you may see it more at home. So you can have changes or fluctuations in that irritability.
Any other questions?
I'm going to trip over my wording, but I'm just curious, how contagious how are the stress indicators? Like if you're in a group of positive kind of people, you kind of, and so I'm just curious, like how much of this is just kind of gaining momentum, you know?
Anxiety is extraordinarily contagious. And you can see it kind of, I don't know if you ever sat with a friend or someone who's really anxious, you will begin to experience physiological symptoms of anxiety. So anxiety is a symptom that is very contagious in groups. So yeah, but sometimes all of their friends are stressed out.
So I would tell you that, parents are anxious. The chances that their children will be anxious, not only are they genetically loaded, but they're environmentally loaded. Just the other day, I had 4 girls in my office and who are all completely stressed out, and each one pointed at the other and said, well, you're the most stressed, or you're the most stressed, or you're the most stressed. But they all realized that being around each other, they all elevated each other's stress. So they decided as a group of 4 what they were going to do to help each other. And I got to sit back and watch these 4 girls figure out how they were going to help each other. And they thanked me at the end of the session, and I didn't really do a whole bunch. They figured it out on their own. But yes, you can see that it is a contagion, and then once one person gets it, other people try to fix it, they can't, and then you get this increase.
It's also the impact of social media. Right? So for many of us, maybe I'm dating myself here, but when you came home from school, you were pretty much protected from the dramas that were occurring in school. Right? You kind of shut off. It's true for our work life too. With technology now, there is no break. The drama that's happening in school is coming right back home. We could say for the case of adults, the stress of our work is coming right back into the home because of our devices.
Not only does it come back home, it lives there forever. So what I mean by that, if you make a bully comment, it used to be I would say it to your face, maybe 6 people heard it, and then you went away. Now it's written on social media for everyone to see it, and it lives there forever. So you can't even escape it. And there's so many issues with social media, and the need to unplug our kids, which is a whole nother lecture. I'm going to get about.
I actually would like to ask for that panel to happen, because in my case, I find that with my kids, especially my daughter, social media is the biggest cause of stress.
From a neurological perspective, it is like there's a dopamine dump when they look, and it's like a hit of cocaine. So if you think that these things are not addictive, they are 100% addictive.
And not just for adolescents.
For adults too.
Yeah.
How many of us check them all day long? And the thing is, they're not going away. So, but the truth is, we have to figure out how we're going to work with them, because they're not going away, but they're addictive. And the dopamine dump that happens in the brain, when you wake up first thing in the morning, you turn on and you look, what's happening to your brain? You get a dopamine dump. We are literally restructuring our brains every single day when we turn this on. So it is, it's a major issue that we really haven't discussed neurologically in the field.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. We need to allow our custodians to maintain their schedule. I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank Ellen and May, who is not with us this evening, for putting this evening together. Thank you all very much.